It's been a hot minute since we last did a weapon guide on the channel, but with Hotfix 1.2.23 recently buffing 20 weapons in the game, it's about time that we took another look at some of them and with the best builds to use and which are overall the now best ones to use in your games. Now, seeing as I want to bring out an updated Backdraft Blair build to you and the weapons are highly influential as to how that performs, I think it's worth us covering a couple of the builds on the channel first and then setting you up for the chef man himself. So in this video we'll be breaking down my testing and go-to setup for Nazeistra's Devotion, the precision weapon of choice. We'll be talking all things to do with modules to get the most out of it, weapon cores to farm for, what does and doesn't work so that you don't make mistakes other creators have out there in their builds, and then lastly which descendants can really benefit from its newfound power. If all that sounds good to you, then what are we waiting for? Let's get to it. Now, if you've never used the Devotion before, you could possibly be forgiven. While it did have a little bit of utility attached to it, the gun was largely outclassed for the longest time, not being able to keep up with better DPS options, even to that of the other main hand cannon of the Perforator. Now, the overall stats of the gun are okay, with the gun receiving toxic attack after the last patch, middling firearm attack, but where it really stood out was with its multipliers, notably towards crit, and rewarding players that built into the gun's strength. A 45% base crit rate made it easy to become consistently a crit machine, and then packing a 2.25x on crit damage, any increases to that would skyrocket, and now it's only getting really dwarfed by the insane 5.19x weak point multiplier that the gun now possesses. Now, passive-wise, the ability Fanaticism means that when we hit a weak point, we'll now apply Devotion Mark, reducing that target's defense by 30% for 3 seconds, making the follow-ups much more deadlier. Now, due to all these nice multipliers, the main aim for this build will be to build these up as high as possible, making it so that when we land our first shot and they still survive, the defense reduction from the passive will then make the second shot be that killing blow. So let's start talking about modules. First and foremost, we want to boost our base damage, really taking advantage of those multipliers. The standard set of rifling reinforcement with action and reaction will give us a nice platform to start with, pushing us closer to 90k firearm attack. Now, as Devotion is great for crit building, we'll boost our rate up higher with better insight, along with higher damage through better concentration and concentration priority. Now, while I am aware that other hand cannons benefit more from charge amplification over that of concentration priority, due to the Devotion's crit multipliers, we actually get a 5.75% better DPS calc going for that crit over the charge amp in this example. Now, while any element can be slotted in to match the content that you're doing, for general use we'll actually be going for Toxic Enhance and Poison Priority to boost the toxic attack that the gun already has at base, which also tends to enjoy the higher multipliers as well. More base element attack cause bigger numbers on landing those hits. Now, of course, we can't forget the fire rate module to help get those shots off quicker, although if you do find that you're doing the easier side of content with invasions and 400% instead of things like Purge, then you'll tend to one-shot almost everything that you see, so you could almost swap this out for a magazine size boost should the excessive fire rate not be needed. Now, for Purge though, the faster fire rate is an absolute blessing and really does put the World of Hurt into an elite weak point. And then lastly, our 2 slots will go to that of our weak point modules. Now, due to the Devotion having a 5.19x multiplier now, this means that we only need a total of 92.6% modifier to hit that cap of 10x. Now, this can come from a multitude of places, like for example arcade tuning, weapon cores, or even the substats of the weapon, but I found that the best way to be able to go for this is to get grabbing the 75% from weak point sight and have aiming for the modules, and then we'll grab the rest later on. Now, just to settle a few misconceptions that are out there, when you've hit that weak point cap of 10x, running modules like Weak Point Expansion, Special Sight, and Ultra Precision Strike, and of course a few others that exist out there, will not be boosting you anywhere past that cap. These are considered dead mods and should not be ran in any of your builds, and this can easily be tested for yourself inside the laboratory, so if you have these slotted in along with any of your other weak point mods, you're going to be missing out on further DPS with the gun and going to be having a dead slot in your loadout. Now, as we want the gun to perform well in weak points and crit, it's worthwhile us cramming as much damage and rate into the build that we can. Ideally, for max DPS, you'll want to go for firearm attack, crit damage, crit rate, and lastly weak point damage. And the weak point damage combined with that of your arcade tuning with a couple of nodes will be what secures you your full max 10x weak point multiplier, so it is absolutely worth that slot in here. Now, cores-wise, we have access to 1 free slot, 1 green, 2 yellow, and 1 purple. Not the best overall core slots in the world, but we can still make this work. Now, as we've maxed out our weak points damage already through modules and rolls, we won't need to slot in any more here. Instead, we'll be using the red cores and aim for critical damage on our free slot, taking advantage of that 2.25x multiplier that the gun gets natively. Now, for our green, this does actually depend on what you're comfortable with. Now, fire rate is the preferable one, upping our DPS with the gun, but it can cause inaccurate follow-up shots because the recoil's not resetting. Now, if you prefer to be on target with your shooting and find the fire rate increase to be a little bit too much, please feel free to swap this out for a mag size core and just go for what actually feels comfortable for you. Now for our yellows, while mobility via sprinkles and grapple charge would be nice to have, the gun really can benefit from some nice aimed accuracy and recoil cores, offsetting the downside of having to have aiming as well as mitigating action and reactions recoil increase so that we can land easier weak point shots as well as the follow-ups. Now Descendant wise, due to the nature of how the Devotion works, this is a fantastic bossing gun for almost every single Descendant that doesn't benefit more from having a stat stick inside their hands. Now, high damage, insane multipliers, a debuff that helps teammates if you play co-op, and being easy to use make this a fantastic pocket sniper in the current sandbox, and it's ideal for swapping to against stubborn targets when your skills just aren't cutting it anymore. Now due to the stacking of the defense reduction along with that of the mutant cell of defense neutralization, any gun descendant that can boost their crit rates along with hitting enemies with a skill to proc the cell will have an easy way of being able to demolish targets even inside of Purge. Now Backdraft Blair, Enzo and Haley are just a couple of notable examples and would absolutely love to have this weapon available to them. And with all that out of the way, that wraps it up on my video for my current Nazeistra Devotion build. It cannot be understated how fantastic the weak point multiplier buff was for hand cannons, with Perforator being that next gun I want to break down on the channel, absolutely making mincemeat of enemies inside of that of Purge 10. Now with the damage that these babies can do, it's hard to suggest a harder hitting per bullet gun that exists right now. But this is the section I want to hear from you. How are you finding the weapons after the buff patch? Are you a fan of how the Devotion performs now? And then lastly, who do you currently have it equipped to? Let me know all that and more down below. Massive thank you for making your way to the end of the video. As I always say, keep yourself safe, keep yourselves well, and I'll see you all on the next video.